The thing I can't shake, even now, is how still it was. Most animals move when you look at them. They bolt, or they bluff, or they at least shift their weight. This didn't. It just stood at the tree line across the water, watching me like it had been there a long time before I ever looked up.
I need to back up. I had been solo backpacking in the Glacier Peak Wilderness for 3 days by the time any of this happened. No cell signal, no other hikers, just me and a 40-pound pack and a set of topo maps I'd spent 2 years planning around. I went off trail on day 2, navigating by compass through old growth and deadfall until I found a small Alpine lake that didn't appear on any hiking guide I owned. It was one of those places that feels genuinely hidden, not because it's hard to reach, but because it seems to want to be. I made camp on the north shore, hung my food, cooked dinner on my stove, and sat out on a flat rock, watching the sun drop behind the ridge. That was when I noticed the shape at the tree line on the far shore. My first thought was bear. My second thought was very tall man. Then I stopped labeling it and just watched. It didn't move for close to 20 minutes. I sat still too, headlamp off, just watching that shape in the gap between 2 pines across the water. It wasn't doing anything. It was just there, the way a tree is there, except I was certain it hadn't been there when I set up camp. When full dark came and I couldn't distinguish the shape from the rest of the tree line, I told myself I'd been looking at a snag, a stripped dead trunk, some trick of the fading light on pale bark. I crawled into my tent and lay there with my pulse going until I finally fell asleep. The next morning I walked around the lake to where it had been standing. The ground was soft from a recent rain, and there were no tracks of any kind. No prints, no drag marks, no pressed grass. But one of the pines at the edge of the tree line had a long vertical scrape in its bark, pale and fresh, looking starting about chest height and going up well above where I could reach.
I should have packed up and left. I know that. But I stayed a second night, telling myself it was nothing, that I was turning a scrape mark into something my tired brain needed. I think somewhere underneath all that rationalization, I just needed to see it again and get a clear look at what it actually was. Around midnight, I was sitting outside the tent watching the lake when I heard the water move, not wind ripple. Something wading. When I looked, it was out there, maybe 30 feet from the near shore, standing upright in the middle of the lake. The water there is deep, chest deep on a man. I'd confirmed that afternoon when I waded in to fill my filter. But whatever this was had the waterline at its knees, too tall, wrong proportions. Its arms hung too low, almost to its thighs. It wasn't moving. It was just standing in water that should have been over its head, facing my campsite. I turned on my headlamp. I can't explain why. Every rational part of me knew not to, but my hand just went to it. The beam swept across the water and caught it for less than 2 seconds before the light died. My hands were shaking too hard to hold the battery contact. In those 2 seconds, I saw it was tall, pale where the light found it, with a neck that was too long and a head tilted to one side, as though it was listening for something very faint. It was facing me, not turning toward me, already facing me, the way you face something you've been watching for a long time. I backed into my tent and stayed there until dawn with my knife in my hand, listening. Nothing else moved. No splash, no footsteps, no sounds from the tree line at all. By the time the sun came up, I had almost convinced myself I'd hallucinated the whole thing. Then I looked at the lake, and there was a standing wave in the water where something heavy had been. I packed in the dark and walked out. 14 miles back to the trailhead in one shot, moving as fast as the terrain would allow, which was faster than I'd moved in years. I didn't stop for breakfast, didn't stop at all except once, about 3 miles from the parking lot, where the trail runs through a long corridor of old-growth cedar. The canopy closes over you in there, and the light goes green and wrong, and it feels like the trees are doing something other than just standing. That was when I got the feeling, that specific animal certainty that something is behind you, watching the back of your head. I turned and the trail was empty. I kept moving and turned again 100 yards later, empty. But between those two looks, in the brief window when my back was turned, something had appeared at the far end of the corridor. Same height, same wrong shape, standing perfectly still among the trunks, not following, just watching me go. I made the trailhead just after noon, and my truck was the only vehicle in the lot, the way I'd left it 3 days before. I sat in the cab for a long time before I could stop shaking enough to get the key in the ignition. Then I looked in the rearview mirror. At the far edge of the gravel lot, where the pavement ends and the trees start, there was a figure standing at the tree line. Far enough that I could have talked myself out of it, tall enough that I couldn't. I pulled out and drove, and I didn't stop until I was back on the main highway doing 70 with 100 miles between me and that trailhead. That night in a motel outside Wenatchee, I lay in the bed with every light on, the TV running, and I still couldn't shake the feeling that something was standing just outside the door, waiting to be looked at. I've never been back. I've pulled up satellite imagery of that drainage maybe 100 times, trying to find a rational explanation, trying to locate the lake on the maps, and I can't. I've told this story to people I trust and heard every answer: black bear, moose, exhaustion, altitude messing with depth perception in low light. I don't argue with any of it. I know how it sounds, Lee. But I've been backpacking alone for 10 years, and I know the difference between something that doesn't know you're there and something that does. That thing knew. From the first moment I saw it across the water, before I moved or made a sound, it was already facing my camp, which means it saw me before I saw it. Completely, I've spent 3 years trying to figure out what it was waiting for me to do, whether I left because it let me, or whether that night in the water was just the first time it decided to let me see it. I don't have an answer. I just know I haven't gone back to the mountains alone since.